reflect back after a session and be like, man, I wish I would have, and I wish I would have done this like technically or tactically. But I think the biggest way I can grow is how I treat myself throughout a session. I think learning a new skill is really hard, or being in an environment that's new is really hard, but being able to have grace with yourself in that transition process is going to be the most important thing. And I think that's what I learned throughout the beginnings, because I think the beginning I came in with the mindset that I wanted to be patient with myself and have this sense of grace and peace and just walk away and know that I did my best. But as a high level goalkeeper, that's not always easy, because you're like, I want to like be the best too. I don't want to just do my best. So I think after a couple of weeks, it was kind of learning how to walk away from a session and be like, yeah, that was a hard session, but I never gave up on myself. I put myself in positions to push myself, and I failed, but I also learned through that failure instead of putting myself down through that failure.
What do you think it required of you outside of the lines? Because I think you're right. Like, it does take a lot of mental resilience to train in that capacity, because you're making so many mistakes, you're making errors, you're comparing. Well, you don't have to compare yourself to others, but it's very easy to do that, right? So like before training or after training or on days off or whatever, rest days, any day, like how do you feel like you prepared to succeed in that environment when you weren't here?
I think having a sense of self-awareness is really important in understanding what you need to be successful. And I've always been someone that, and I'm not proud of it, but comparison has just always been something I've struggled with. And especially in an environment with some of the best goalkeepers in the country, it kind of goes on full blast where you're like, man, comparison for 8 weeks is not going to survive. So I think being able to kind of take a step back, and I think the biggest thing for me was learning what my strengths are and where my weaknesses are, and allowing them to coexist, but in a positive mindset. I think weaknesses and strengths can be talked simultaneously, and just because it's a strength doesn't mean it can't be like put on top and continue to work on. And just because it's weakness doesn't mean you have to do it 24/7. It's not going to necessarily progress it as much. And I think being able to find confidence in what you're good at and be able to share that with other people. And then at the same time, like for me, spread was kind of my big thing over the summer that I was learning, and diving into conversations with people that were really good at it or more experienced with it, and getting to learn from them through conversation was really important to me, because I had the opportunity to share my knowledge on something else, which gave me confidence to be able to be vulnerable in moments where I wasn't as strong.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so good. I wish more people heard that and applied that to their everyday life. Is like, one, have those conversations with people, ask questions, talk about whatever it is that you're kind of inquisitive about, where you want to learn and grow, and like not just rely on someone telling you what to do all the time, right? Like, being able to have conversations with Cam or Katie or AB or even some of the other interns alongside of you is so helpful, because you can kind of work out in your head, like, oh, that's when that works. That's when that doesn't work. Here's where I can apply that, because that's my strength. And that's when Katie can apply it, because that's her strength, right? And hopefully not only for you as a player, but that helps you as a coach then, because that you have that aspiration, understand a little bit more about the game and how each person can kind of interpret it different. So what happens when you go back into an environment that's outside of TKI? How did your experience here, both as a person and as a player, relate back to a different environment?
Yeah, I think something that no matter how aware you are of it, change is extremely hard, and it can come in so many forms. I think my transition up to TKI, the first couple of weeks, it's a new environment, and it's new goalkeeping, it's new soccer, it's new people. And I think simultaneously it's the same on the way back. And you think you're going back to what's comfortable or what you knew, that it should be easy, or that's at least what I thought. But you're a new person also, and you're a new goalkeeper, and every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. And everything I grew over the summer and at TKI and up in New Jersey was a new version of me coming back to what I was comfortable with, making me uncomfortable, which was a challenge the first couple of weeks. And I think it wasn't just everything soccer, but it was getting back adjusted to what my role looks like on this team. And being here 4 years, you're like, oh, your role's the exact same, but you're coming in with new knowledge, with new people, and wanting to make an impact in a different way than maybe you've made before, adding a different factor. So I think the biggest thing when I came back and my transition away from TKI was kind of reevaluating what I wanted and what I truly wanted to leave as my mark in this season and the people I wanted to impact. I think I took a lot of pride in how I wanted to leave the program, especially going into my last year. And I've taken this big appreciation over the summer of how little playing can give you when you have the opportunity to learn and grow and coach and expand the game and be in intellectual conversations and be creative. And that's the kind of impact I want to leave on the players around me, which obviously is going to help your playing. But when all you're focused on is outcomes and did I perform good enough, or did I make this save, or did I get this award? It's like, those are just going to drain out eventually. And what happens when you don't get an award for 5 weeks? What, you're just going to like shrug your shoulders and be like, oh, I trained 8 weeks for what? Mm-hmm. And that kind of mindset is really what I was trying to figure out those first couple of weeks. Is I knew that's not the direction I wanted to head, but I didn't necessarily know which direction I wanted to go with the impact and the conversations I wanted to have with the people around me. And so I think that's the biggest thing with the transition away from such a open, safe, creative space, is how to bring that into an environment that's already established without changing the integrity of it, because you can't expect it to change. It's been longstanding. You've been part of it. Just because you're different, it doesn't mean it's going to be different. So balancing that and finding my piece of where I can make an impact. And I think that came in with the people. I have had conversations with our backs about ways that we can scan better or be in pockets to support each other so that we can build, and how allowing pressure to come with us to us is actually more beneficial than just letting them hold a low line. And so seeing them make connections has brought me more joy than like anything that I've gotten to like perform. And I think that is more longstanding and kind of the direction that you can take your mindset to make it more enjoyable throughout a really hard 4 months of college soccer, honestly.
Wow, that's really good. And then I want you to be as open and vulnerable as you can be on this next couple questions, but you have aspirations to play pro. And this is your last year. That's it. There's no extra plus 1 year. This is it. You have 20 some games left, 30 games left if you're lucky. How is the pressure of performing in your last college season? It's kind of like, your whole career has amounted to this season, right? And you have aspirations to play pro. How are you managing that external pressure?
Yeah, I actually really don't feel pressure that often. I feel like, and like, I don't really get nervous ever for games. I have so much confidence in the way that I prepare and the person that I am off the field and the relationships that I've made with my back line or like whoever's on the field, that I know no matter what happens, it's not going to really change anything. And I've also go in and I'm in the facility like 8 hours a day. I'm like, if I go out on that field and I'm like, man, this week I did everything humanly possible to put me in a place to be successful today. I'm not saying I'm not going to walk off the field sometimes like pissed or mad that something happened, but the next day I can wake up and be like, like I did what I could. Like I am putting myself every day in a position to be as successful as possible. I think also I love the game of soccer for so much more than what I do with it. I think performing in front of people is so awesome, and I get a lot of like confidence and excitement from that. But I find so much joy in being able to help the people around me understand the game better, that nothing that I really do is gonna on the field and my performance is not really gonna affect the way I can impact them. So I kind of like don't really feel that kind of need or pressure to be perfect or perform at such a level, because at the end of the day, it's going to fall the way it's supposed to fall. And if even I get the opportunity to work with one team at the end of the season, my hard work, my dedication, and just like the person I am, I know will kind of go further than the highlight reel they're going to see if they want to draft me.
Yeah. I'm going to clip that and I'm going to play that on repeat for myself when I'm feeling anxious and stressed and get some performance anxiety, because I think that's really good insight and really good feedback. Is like, no matter what your performance is, that you can trust your process, that you've done every single thing you can to prepare you for that moment. And also what I heard you say is like, it's not going to impact my relationships with people, because those are really important to me. And one mistake or something isn't going to change the way that people care about me. It's not going to change who I am as a person. It's not going to change the way I show up for my teammates either, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about your process to learn spread, because your process to learn spread, someone might not need to learn that spread right now, right? But they might need to learn touch into space. They might need to learn solving pressure. They might need to learn diving 2-to-1, right? Everybody has a thing that they want to improve on. So can you talk to us from like day one of, this is something that I'm going to learn, to implementing it in a big game against a top 5 opponent in the country, against Clemson last week? And if you guys haven't seen it, go on our Instagram from Tuesday, August 20th. There's a video of Maddie performing her first spread in a game. Yeah, tell us your process.
A process honestly started with a bunch of, why do people do that? What is the importance? It's stupid. You can't control the ball. Like, a lot of negative thoughts around it, in all honesty. Like, why do I need to know how to do it? I feel like that's where every great success story starts, is a lot of hate. But I went up and at TKI and just...
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is Tori Corsaro. I'm a strength and conditioning and goalkeeper coach here at the Keeper Institute, and your host for today's show. The Keeper Institute is a unique goalkeeper training facility in New Jersey aimed at developing better goalkeepers and better people. On this podcast, we will be discussing all things goalkeeping, character development, and more.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keeper Institute podcast. Yes, you guys are the kind of guests that I like. You're in on it. It's Jill. Tori's not on this one. I'm hosting it alone, but I got 2 people that I'm really excited to bring on. Heather Hinz and Erin McKinney are joining us for a podcast today. They both play for the Houston Dash. And instead of just going through a whole list of their accolades and achievements, which are great and we're happy for and we're proud of them for doing that, it really doesn't matter what their previous achievements are. What's more important is that two really, really incredible human beings that we're happy to have on. But I am going to let you guys share how we all came together and what your, I guess, journey to TKI was. So, Erin, why don't you start us off, because yours is pretty funny.
Oh, yes, quite funny, quite funny. If I remember correctly, and you can step in at any point, I think we were in the Orlando airport as I was coming back from like one of my last soccer tournaments in high school. I didn't play ECNL, so it was one of the U.S. like youth soccer tournaments down in Orlando. And, you know, growing up, I watched all the greats, including Jill Loyden. So I obviously knew who you were standing in the TSA line. And I think I asked to take a picture. And after that, we got to talking, and you told me to come out to, I want to say it was like one of the first pro camps.
Yep.
So that was my origin story at TKI, is approaching Jill Loyden in the TSA line and then getting an invite to pro camp right before I went off to college.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty funny story. Yeah, Marie and I had like went to Florida, I think it was, just with Maria to like help her recruit or something, just for funsies. Like, I used to have time for that. And on our way back, yeah, just met you and your pops in the airport.
Oh, I'm sure it was just another one of your super fans.
It was very serendipitous, because if that didn't happen, who knows where we would be now, Erin?
There'd be no uncle.
Yeah, there would
Uncle
be
to
no
Levi.
TKI uncle. That's right. And Heather, I feel like I've known you most of your life, actually.
I think we're almost at like a point where it is half of my life. Very different. I sadly didn't grow up watching soccer as much. I did know of you, Jill, and I did know of like a few goalkeepers, but my mom approached me. It was when I like just became a goalkeeper and was like, I'm signing you up for this camp. Jill Loyden's in it and you're going to love it. I was like, but like you had to get into the camp. And I was like, yeah, okay, like I'm going to get in. And so like, whatever, I kind of like put it in like the back burner and was just like having fun, picking flowers and goal, whatever. And then she told me, she's like, you got in, like, you don't understand, this is going to change your life. I was like, okay, I went to camp. Like, I was like very chill about it. But then when I went, I like realized, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. And like, I was like, it like was like, now I need to go all the time. And then from there, Erin and I were probably in every group together at one point in high school. And now we're with each other every day.
It's wild. It's so wild. Well, we have Laura to thank for our relationship, and Heather's sister, Stu, also Megan, but no one calls her that.
Yeah.
Came to TKI. She was our first intern and really changed and paved the way for someone like Erin and Heather that both did the internship in the summer, which is one of my favorite things in the world. So a lot of our listeners are in high school right now and trying to navigate the college process, which all three of us have had different experiences, and one that we can all acknowledge is different and to each person and equally as challenging sometimes. So I would love to ask both of you about that college search. And Heather, we'll start with you, but can you just try and describe to us how the college process went for you and maybe some of the difficulties that went along with it?
Yeah, so I was pretty small is how I'll like kind of start that with. But like not just like height wise, like I was the like tiniest. My legs were like the size of my arms now.
You weren't as sturdy as you are
yeah,
now.
I wasn't the sturdy queen that I am now.
Right.
Is what I'll kind of say. And I started being a goalkeeper a little bit later than most people. And I saw my sister go through it, and I was just kind of scared of the kind of college recruiting process. But the way I started it was like just going to camps, and just throwing stuff at a wall and hoping it stuck. Just like kept like going to whatever I could. I had like a massive dream of wanting to go pro, but I never really wanted to say it because I didn't know if like college would go well. So I just would like reach out to a ton of different teams and hope that something worked out. I do give a lot of creds to TKI because I think just like having someone like Jill kind of say like, no, she is legit, she could do it, really helped me. I don't know if I really would have gotten recruited without it. But I just like went to a ton of camps, and back when I was getting recruited, it was very different than now. Like you could literally commit as a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like one of the last people on my team though, and I was a sophomore. So I just know that during my time there was so much pressure, and I then narrowed it down to either Wake or South Carolina just by going to camps and talking to the coaches. And for me, what was like most important was I had known my sister's college career didn't go necessarily the way she wanted to, and all I wanted was to have a true team and a true family. And at South Carolina, I felt like the two coaches are married. I love them to death. And I was like, you know what? That's how you get a family environment. That's how you get a true team. And I knew that if soccer didn't work out, I would at least have something there, which was massively important to me because I still go through it today. But I had like a lot of times where I was like, if soccer doesn't work out, like what else am I? And that was something that was really important to me. So I ended up going to South Carolina, and it was probably the best decision I've made so far in my life.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue because Erin had a completely different experience, and maybe one that was like helpful in the beginning, but then you realized wasn't serving you in the moment. So Erin, can you kind of talk us through that college recruitment process, but also you transferred schools. So how was that?
Yeah, I think that Heather and I had a lot of similarities and differences. And like from the start, similarly, we both are on the smaller side. And I know that there's a lot of coaches now that are very progressive and very thoughtful as in what it means to be a good goalkeeper. But I know that during my high school or even like middle school process, I had so many coaches tell me that, hey, like good stuff out there. We just are never going to look at someone who's 5'4". And I've had that like said to me, and I'm sure Heather has too. So that was, I guess, how to start off this college recruitment story. And like Heather said, people on our teams were committing like 8th grade, which is crazy. So thinking back, I thought I had to like really get this thing started right away, and like kept trying to chop at it. And I wasn't on an ECNL team, but we still like got decent looks on our team from whatever tournaments we were doing. Maybe the one down in Orlando where I met Jill. And I only ended up getting one offer out of that whole process, and ended up committing junior year to University of Akron in Ohio. And I knew from the start that that's wasn't my goal. And I guess what was different from Heather is that like, yeah, I kept like telling people, hey, I want to go pro. Like I had the idea. I knew it sounded like a moonshot to whoever was trying to listen, but having that idea in the back of my head and then committing to, I guess, a mid-major school, I knew that there'd be a lot of stepping stones in between. And I didn't necessarily from the bat think I was going to transfer, but my idea going in with only one offer was just to make the most of it. And the plus side of it was that I was going to play freshman year. So I wasn't thinking too much outside of soccer, and that definitely, I do agree with Heather. Like you definitely should be thinking about, you know, who am I outside of soccer? Because anything can happen. Like at something that also kind of hindered my recruiting process is tearing my ACL at 14. So stuff was always like happening in between. So I think Heather's mindset was definitely beneficial to her going into the recruiting process.
Yeah.
But after that year of playing, going in with that mindset, it helped me develop and it helped me get minutes. And I still had that goal to go pro and to be the best goalkeeper and get the best education I could. So I ended up transferring to University of Wisconsin after my freshman year at Akron.
Mm-hmm. Looking back in hindsight for both of you, first of all, thanks so much for being vulnerable and like sharing some of the difficult aspects of that, because I think a lot of our listeners can really relate with how your stories, how many obstacles and things you had to overcome. But I think a lot of where people go wrong is they prioritize things that actually don't matter in the recruiting process because they think it's the most important thing. But if we make decisions or if we sacrifice what's actually important for what we think is really important, it could lead to like not either the most enjoyable experience or one that we just are like, I can't stay here anymore. So looking back, Heather, like what was something that you thought mattered or what didn't matter, like in hindsight of choosing your school?
I think at first all I thought about, and now I did end up going to South Carolina. So like, I think since I was there, we always top 25, but like at first, I know I said like earlier that like it was really important to enjoy it outside. But when I first just saw South Carolina, I was just like, I need to go to a big school. I need to be in like the like media of the big school. Like it needs to be about like getting noticed so that I can then make it to the next level. And I learned very quickly my freshman year that is awful because I didn't play my freshman year. And I struggled with a lot of like, who am I and what am I doing right now? Which honestly, you still like, I'll be honest, like I still kind of struggle with now. Like I'm in a transition period. It's just a transition period. And I was very much like confused on what I was doing because I was like, I'm sitting here a whole year. And then the next year I wasn't even guaranteed a spot. So I think like just thinking like I have to go to the biggest and coolest school was just like such a tough mindset, and that I got insanely lucky with the school that I chose and doing that with. Like I think South Carolina genuinely made me the person that I am and shaped me into like the mindset that I have. But if I would have chosen maybe another school, I would have been really unfortunate. I just got very lucky on who I picked. Because I do know a lot of my friends that chose that big school, that big name, and transferred immediately, not because of like they knew better opportunities like Erin did, but because like they just chose because of the name.
Right.
You know,
right.
like, and it just, that's always something that really worried me, is like, did I just do this just for the clout of it, which is just like so sad to like admit, but like it kind of was the way it was at first.
Yeah.
And I just got lucky, I think.
But ultimately, I think you should probably give yourself more credit, because ultimately you made a decision based on your intuition of how people treated you, right?
Yeah.
Because Jamie and Shelly are the kindest humans
Yeah.
and like really care about their players. And so you said earlier that was something that was important to you. And intuitively, it might have been a little bit of all things, but intuitively you relied on what was important. And I want to feel valued and I want to feel part of a family. And you made that decision. And ultimately it was a great one for you.
And I will say, like, one thing that I do know that South Carolina would do differently is like when people would have their meetings, it would be like, yes, you have your soccer meetings, but each week they would be like, how are you? What is your life like as a person? And like, I think I really took that for advantage when I was in college, because then in the pros, I'm like, why aren't they asking me how my personal life is now? And I'm like, wait, this is your job. Like, you just like with college, you get that experience of like truly being on a team. And like, I think that's something that's so beautiful about the college game, is like they truly need to care about their players and they truly want to create that team environment, because that's like the 4 years of your life you'll never get back.
Yeah, absolutely. Erin, do you have a specific thing that you can remember making a decision on, even in your transfer decision of like, I thought this mattered so much, but it really didn't matter?
Well, I will say that like something that did end up, I think, mattering, even though it's kind of, it hurts to admit, is that like the resources that I got at Wisconsin versus a mid-major did end up like helping my development, and the type of level I was playing at helped me and like kind of get to that next level. So like, I won't sugarcoat that part. Something that mattered a lot that I didn't care about and that I hate to admit as well is the first 3 years of my college career at Akron, and my first few years when I wasn't playing at Wisconsin was sitting behind Jordan Bloomer. Something that matters tenfold that I did not care about was how I was off the field, because I was so get to the next level, stepping stone, that I didn't, looking back, I could have been a 10 times better teammate. And that's the kind of thing that carries with you off the field to the pros, something that carries with you to the draft. Like, people are going to ask around about you, and it's not going to be how many balls you kept out of the goal. A lot of times as a rookie, whether it's to transfer into a different school, to even go from high school to college, to go from college to pros, people need someone good in the locker room. And they need, I hate when they call it personality hire, but they need, they need people who are good for the team. And that creates, like what Heather said, the family culture. And I did not think about that one bit going into college. And that is one of my biggest regrets, is that I wish I could have been the type of teammate that people needed me to be, and invested hard off the field as much as I did on the field.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I made a living off being the personality hire, so I get it. Erin, I'm going to go with you for the next one. Is, what do you think you did in college that really helped you prepare for the professional level?
Something that I did in college to help me prepare professionally. I think what helped me prepare is from going from like that mid-major to Wisconsin, having all those kind of weird transitions in my 4, 5, 6 years, is learning to like know my worth, because there's going to be a million people in that process that are going to try to set it for you. So really just honing down on self-awareness, what I think my strengths are, what I think my weaknesses are. And that came from film, and that came from a lot of times where my ego got hurt because someone told me something about myself, and having to look back and reflect and know, like, hey, I notice about myself, and having to set that intention every day going into training. Because at the pros, as a rookie, like I said, there's going to be a bunch of people who tell you your worth, and there's going to be even now media and reporters who want to chip in on that. And if you have a strong sense and foundation of your worth, whether you're at a mid-major, a Power 5, what is it now? Power 4, my bad.
Power 2.
Then Power 2. If you have that strong foundation, it's really going to help you on those long days where you feel like your worth is set in soccer.
Yeah. And just a quick plug, I think I always will go back on this because it was a lived and shared experience. It sounds like with you too, Erin, is the mental side of the game is the most important. And Coach Chris here at TKI is doing a 4-week workshop for the mental side of the game to help you take your next steps, whether you're middle school or high school. It's called Bulletproof. It is in November and December. Make sure you check out the details on that. Okay.
Chris is my hero.
Yes. She's everyone's emotional support human. Heather, what do you think helped you in college to make the jump?
I honestly think it was my freshman year and sitting behind another keeper. Because like Erin was talking about, with having to have those relationships off the field while still competing was massive for me, because I always talk about having a good GK unit and that kind of stuff, but it really taught me you have so much to grow and you haven't made it yet. And I tell recruits all the time, if you have to sit a year in redshirt, I honestly don't see an issue with that. And it doesn't define who you are as a person, doesn't define who you are as a goalkeeper. And it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. I sat behind a goalkeeper who was SEC goalkeeper of the year. So instead of taking it as I'm not playing and everything's the worst, I took it as I have so much of a resource to look at right now. She clearly knows what she's doing. She's recognized, what can I learn from her game to then, adapt into my game? How much of a sponge can I be of the people around me, whether or not I think that they're the best goalkeeper in the world or not? I think no matter what, every goalkeeper has something that you can learn something from and that you can adapt towards your game. And it's just really the mentality of, are you willing to adapt that? And then the next year, going into a situation where I wasn't given the spot and I had actually lost the spot for 2 games. And it taught me no matter how good you think you are, no matter what work you've put in, it's about how do you react from that. And I just clearly remember when I wasn't playing and when I had told I wasn't going to play, I had this one game where they had told us that you two are really, really close. She has better feet than you, Heather. You need to fix that. I said, okay. I went every single day and trained on my feet. Then they told me that since we're competing each and every week, whoever does better that week is going to play. And the other goalkeeper had been kind of hurt, so wasn't really training much that week. So I came into the game thinking I was going to play. So excited. I was going to get my first ever true game. And then warm up happens and I see they're warming her up instead. And in that moment I was this is ridiculous. I wanted to throw a fit. I was I want to be a child right now. I want to throw a fit. But I didn't. And I remember specifically being you know what, this is your time to show that you are a true teammate. You are a true friend, because she was my friend. So in that moment I was suck up your pride. You're fine. I was the loudest on the bench that whole entire game. It was a bit of fake it till you make it, because obviously I was upset, but I don't want my team to fail, because no matter what, you want to beat someone out being the best version of you. You don't want to beat someone out because someone got hurt, or you don't want to beat someone out because you're being petty. That's just the worst way to want to win a spot. So I was I want her to play the best ever so that I can potentially win the spot. And after the game, I cried in the locker room because I was so upset. And I had then gotten pulled into a meeting. They're you need to be a better teammate. You need to work harder in training. And that week of training, I feel just flipped everything for me. I came in with intentions. I came in with, if I don't play this weekend, how am I acting during the week? How am I? And after that, I started and played every single game, practically. There's a bit of injuries in some parts, but I think if it weren't for that, right now I'm in a situation where I'm not playing. I'm potentially not traveling. I obviously have 2 amazing goalkeepers in my unit. So like, how can I be the best version of myself and still show my personality in this session, but then also still compete with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Really great insight. I also have a follow-up question that's not on our itinerary, however, a very short answer. But if you could take your ideal perfect school, and maybe you had that in each of the schools that you finished at, your perfect college experience, what's one thing looking back that you're like, I would never sacrifice in making the decision to go there? And I'll go first, and it's an answer for me, but I would never sacrifice the level of education I got at Villanova and a coaching staff that really cared about my development as a person and player. Those are 2 things I would never sacrifice. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts.
You stole my last answer, Jill, is that going from both schools, I would never sacrifice the amount of investment that Paula and Tim put into me. Mm-hmm. And they weren't the type to tell you, like, you're this great keeper, you're this great person, blah, 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 which, like, I didn't need that. So, I mean, maybe some people did, but the amount of time they put into you, whether it was film, whether it was taking you after the game and just asking your opinion, whether it was trying a way to build out of the back that Paula didn't want to do, but you brought it up so she would try it in training. Mm-hmm. There was like countless moments that they developed me as a player and a person that I would not sacrifice. Another one is the goalkeepers. Heather touched on this in my unit. I want to say Wisconsin has sent like 3-4 keepers to the NWSL. I don't know what's going on there, but there always seems to be like 1 or 2 like really good keepers at a time. And there was 3 of us that were all like competing head to head every day. And like Heather said, looking back at it, it was draining. And sometimes I wasn't the best teammate because maybe other people's successes made me feel like I couldn't, like other people's successes defined me. But that taught me so many lessons, and it grew me so much, so rapidly, because you competing every day at that level, just, I wouldn't sacrifice that, even though it was a hard task.
Yeah. Heather?
I would say that one thing, like the main thing, which goes with kind of what I've already touched on, was like the community of South Carolina, whether it was on the field or off the field. Like, I love Columbia, South Carolina to death now, to the point my family practically lives there. I love that team as an alumni. I loved it when I played there. Just the girls that I had there, the coaching staff that I had there, like I wasn't brought in by the same coach, that goalkeeper coach that ended up being my goalkeeper coach for 4 years. And just the, like Erin was talking about, the investment, all that kind of stuff, like just the community built around it and the true family environment. Like I don't think I 100% wouldn't be playing now if it weren't for them. And how much time they put into me, whether it was a teammate, a coach, or even the fans. I just like could not imagine it without that. And it just like kind of helped grow me today, because now I want to, like, whatever team I go to, invest myself in the community and what they could like do for me, like what I did for them, if that makes sense.
I just called the Clemson South Carolina game last weekend, and it was the third highest attendance. The third highest attendance. So it's so cool there. The stadium and the atmosphere is amazing.
Yeah.
Last question, and we're going to wrap this thing up, is a lot of people that are listening to this have aspirations to play pro. And I don't think, and when you guys were going through the process, I tried to tell you as much and as often as possible as how difficult this transition was going to be and how hard it was going to be. But Erin, why don't you start us off? But what has been the most surprising part about the professional game to you? And what is it that goalkeepers could start doing right now to help them prepare to succeed at their highest level?
I'm just going to give a little backstory of like what I've seen so far in my short few months in the NWSL. I was not drafted. I was sitting right by Heather at the draft, cheering her on as she went to Dash. But got a call right after the 56th pick and picked up by Chicago for preseason, then sent over to Gotham on an injury replacement contract. Then Ann Berger, that awesome woman, came in, and then my contract had to be released. So I ended up getting picked up by Dash. So crazy few months in the NWSL. But what I've noticed from all those different experiences is how you would think like at this level, there's not like a difference between, I guess, like goalkeepers. But we are all so different and we solve problems in so many different ways. And the most successful I've seen goalkeepers be is ones that are very self-aware. Like Jane knows that maybe her positioning higher up is way more successful than when her positioning is lower. And then she tells me I hug the line, but maybe I think that's way more successful for me. And Berger could hit a dime on a diagonal and just knows that she can find that. But they also know what they need to work on and will tell their coaches that and just have this very good dialogue with the staff of how to work on their weaknesses, but how their play can play into their strengths. And I've just have tried to be a sponge to all of these different goalkeepers I've been around because their self-awareness inspires me to play to my strengths more in the NWSL. So yeah, that's the little tidbit I've learned so far.
That's great. Heather, what about you?
I think like if you want like tangible things, like I always went to as many sessions that I could to absorb as much information, or I would play with guys just to work on speed. But like kind of pretty much what Erin is saying, I think genuinely the most important thing is to truly know what you want and then the steps to be able to get to what you want, and then being adaptable. Like you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to roll with the punches. I've had like an interesting rookie season. I've gotten injured twice now. Not like majorly, but like little things. And then just like keeping my eye on that goal still. Like our coach will talk to me a ton about like, hey, you might be on your peak right now in this week, but like how are you going to be able to like maintain like a true consistency? Because there's been times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to play. And then there's been times where like I can't catch a single ball. So just like being able to like emotionally control things, like because you can control your emotions, you can't control whether or not someone's going to hit it up or 90. So just being able to like roll with the punches is just really how I've been able to kind of word it as easily as possible. How can I adapt to the situation and how can I emotionally control myself? Because I know I've personally been able to learn how to catch a ball. I've learned how to do the spread. Like those things you can train yourself into doing, but like in a moment when things are going wrong, like you can also control your thoughts so much easier if you do the work behind.
Yeah. What I think if I summarize up what both of you said into one thing is know your identity.
Yeah.
Who you are as a goalkeeper and who you are as a person, because both will be challenged when you're playing, and over a very long grind of a season that is from February till November. And every single part of you is tested, the physical side, the mental side, the tactical side. Every little bit of you is being forced to like bring your best every day, or else it's so much more difficult and like so demanding, and also can lead to some really negative self-talk or beliefs about yourself. But if you have a really strong foundation in who you are personally, and like Erin's saying, if you can play to those strengths as much as possible while also giving yourself latitude to work on your areas of improvement, that's when you can, one, be feeling really competent and confident, but also two, I think it's a lot more enjoyable when you can tackle something like that rather than just show up and try to beat somebody out every day.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you guys, you have 7 games left?
Yes.
7 games left. Okay. by the time people hear this, probably less, but you guys can find Heather and Erin on social media, on their TikToks, or I know Heather has one, or on the Dash's social media, but they also play for the Dash that play on NWSL Plus, Ion, ESPN, Amazon, all the places. So make sure you guys check out the Houston Dash so you can see these two. And if anybody has questions, they can reach out to you guys.
Of course.
On social
Anytime.
media. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. We love you guys so much. We're so happy and proud that you're a part of our TKI community and our family of amazing, amazing human beings. And I wish you guys nothing but success.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Jill.
Love you, TKI fam.
All right, you guys. We'll catch you later.